Imagine thousands of people, across multiple continents, just completely paralyzed with anxiety, like waking up in the middle of the night, refreshing their feeds at 3 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, just constantly pulling down to refresh.
Exactly. And they aren't tracking a natural disaster, right? They aren't following some massive political scandal. They are losing sleep over a bite wound on the foot of a single Japanese macaque.
Named Punch.
Named Punch. I mean, it sounds absurd if you're outside of the community, but for those inside, the stakes felt just incredibly high.
Oh, absolutely. The emotional investment in this specific animal has become something entirely unprecedented. I mean, we've never really seen anything like it.
It really has. And usually when we consume wildlife updates, there's this expectation of emotional distance. An animal is born, a milestone is reached, and an institution releases a sterile statement.
Right. It's very PR driven, very curated.
Exactly. Very curated. But stepping into the world of Punch means that curation is just gone. We are looking at a living, breathing emotional landscape that we are all experiencing in real time. So what does this all mean?
Well, it means we have a lot to talk about.
We really do. We need to acknowledge right out of the gate that these last 2 weeks, spanning August 12th to August 20th, have been an absolute roller coaster. Yeah. Not just for Punch over at the Ichikawa City Zoo, but for this entire community.
Which is why today's deep dive cannot just be, a clinical timeline of events. We can't just read the update.
No, that wouldn't do it justice.
Exactly. We need to look back and synthesize the fear, the triage, the welfare commitments, and the eventual celebration into one cohesive narrative. Because the collective worry and, honestly, the cascading relief we've experienced over these past few weeks, it's a massive testament to how deeply connected people have become to Punch's journey.
Yeah, that connection is so real. So let's take ourselves back to the heavy, uncertain day where this specific chapter began, August 12th.
Oh, man. That was a rough day.
It was so heavy. A viral video started circulating on social media that appeared to show Punch caught right in the middle of a troop conflict.
Right.
And there was a visible injury. And the eyewitness accounts describing his distress, it just triggered widespread alarm instantly.
Instant panic.
Yeah. But I'm going to pause here because for someone casually scrolling, a monkey fight might just look like, a standard day in nature. So why did this specific video hit the community like a shockwave?
Well, it's because of the specific biological reality of a macaque troop hierarchy combined with Punch's unique history.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
So macaque societies are not just loose gatherings of animals. They are incredibly complex, rigid, and sometimes brutal social webs. They're built on alliances, grooming favors, and spatial dominance.
Well, it's not just a random scuffle over a piece of fruit.
Exactly. When a conflict breaks out, it isn't just a brief argument. It is often a violent realignment of social standing. So when the community saw Punch, an individual they have watched navigate incredible adversity over the years, caught in that violence, it felt existentially threatening.
It was terrifying. Fans flooded the zoo's official accounts with just desperate messages. And sitting there watching it unfold, you just felt this hyper-connected empathy. But the zoo was completely silent for days.
Yeah, the silence is what gets you.
It really does. When a sudden viral panic like that hits, how does that actually impact an institution's ability to respond?
It creates a massive crisis of triage, honestly. It's like being an air traffic controller during a severe thunderstorm.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, because the passengers on the ground are screaming for updates on the flights, but if the controller takes their eyes off the radar to answer them, the planes crash.
Right, you can't just pause the emergency to post on social media.
Exactly. The zoo couldn't just fire off a quick reassurance while an animal was actively injured. The animal care team was in full emergency mode.
Which means doing what exactly?
Well, they had to physically secure Punch, assess the fluctuating troop dynamics to prevent further violence, ensure staff safety, and administer veterinary care.
While leaving the public completely in the dark.
Right. It's the silence of uncertainty. The public doesn't see the rescue operation behind the scenes. They just see the dark storm. And in that silence, human imagination always defaults to the worst-case scenario.
Oh, always. I know mine did.
Mine too. And the institution knows the public is panicking, but releasing premature or inaccurate medical information can cause even more damage.
Which brings us to the breaking of that silence. After what felt like an absolute eternity of holding our collective breath, August 15th finally arrived.
The relief was palpable.
It really was. The zoo released an official statement. They confirmed Punch had sustained a bite wound specifically to the sole of his right foot, and a veterinarian had intervened to treat and disinfect it.
Right.
Now, from a medical standpoint, a foot wound on a macaque sounds incredibly complicated to manage.
It is a veterinary nightmare, frankly.
Wait, really? Just because it's a foot?
Well, yeah, because Japanese macaques are semi-arboreal. To them, a foot is effectively a second set of hands. They use it for climbing, for grasping, for balancing, and for self-defense.
Oh, right. So he can't just stay off it like we would with a sprained ankle.
Exactly. He needs it for everything. Furthermore, a bite wound from another macaque carries an astronomical risk of infection because of the specific bacteria present in their mouths.
Oh, wow. Didn't even think about the bacteria.
Yeah, it's nasty stuff. Treating this isn't just putting a bandage on a cut. It requires anesthesia, rigorous disinfection, and then releasing the animal back into a highly sensitive social environment.
Where showing weakness is dangerous.
Precisely. Smelling like a clinic or showing a slight limp can instantly make them a target for further aggression.
That makes the zoo's approach even more remarkable, I think. Because they didn't just drop that sterile medical chart and log off.
No, they didn't.
They explicitly acknowledged the flood of public inquiries. They stepped up and validated the community's worry. But the part that really caught my eye was their promise to monitor not just his physical health, but his mental health as well.
What's fascinating here is how fundamentally that changes the dynamic between the institution and the public.
How so?
Well, historically, zoological institutions have leaned toward defensive public relations. If an animal is injured, you downplay it, and you certainly don't validate the internet's anxiety.
Right, you try to make it seem like it's business as usual.
Exactly. By naming both the physical injury and the mental toll, Ichikawa City Zoo aligned their internal veterinary mission with the public's emotional investment.
It felt so validating. And hey, I just want to pause for a second and say, if you've been with us through all of this, following every update, feeling every bit of worry and relief alongside us, that really means a lot.
It really does. We've been feeling it too.
Yeah, we've all been carrying this together. So if you're not subscribed to the deep dive yet, now's a great time. Because as we were about to see, this story is far from over.
Oh, definitely. Because the relief of August 15th really was just the foundation. The very next day, August 16th, the zoo released a massive, highly detailed thread that served as a masterclass in transparent animal stewardship.
Okay, let's unpack this because this wasn't just a standard status update. It felt like a manifesto on animal welfare.
It really did.
They revealed that before they even opened the gates that morning, staff had separated multiple individuals from the troop following intense late-night discussions.
And that is no small feat. Altering the social fabric of a hierarchy like this is like playing a high-stakes game of chess.
Because everyone has a specific place in the troop.
Exactly. If you simply remove the alpha or randomly pull out aggressors, you create a power vacuum.
Oh, I see.
And that vacuum often leads to even more intense fighting as the remaining macaques battle to claim the empty spot. The fact that the staff debated this late into the night tells us they were mapping out the cascading social consequences of every single removal.
And they were incredibly honest about the reality of those consequences. I mean, they stated that fights among Japanese macaques simply cannot be entirely avoided.
Which is just the truth. It's nature.
Right. But they explained that minimal, calculated intervention reduces the severity of those fights, noting they had to take a similar action back in March of 2026.
Yeah, they used this crisis as an opportunity to educate the public on the realities of captive wildlife.
Because it's so different from the wild.
Completely different. In the wild, if a subordinate macaque is targeted, they have an escape valve. They can physically run away, they can put miles of force between themselves and the aggressor, or even leave the troop entirely.
But in a zoo,
in a captive environment, they eventually hit a wall. The zoo has to manually act as that escape valve, which is a profound ethical responsibility.
that responsibility led to what I consider the absolute emotional core of this entire saga.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah. The zoo explicitly stated that Punch's own feelings come first. They promised that his integration back into the troop would not be forced, and they recognized their duty to protect his spirit from being broken by excessive fighting.
That phrasing represents a massive paradigm shift in how we talk about captive animals. Protecting his spirit.
Wait, protecting his spirit. I have to push back a little here, just to play devil's advocate. Isn't there a huge risk of us anthropomorphizing a monkey?
It's a for question.
I mean, are we projecting human emotional fragility onto an animal that is biologically hardwired by evolution to handle rough, violent troop politics?
Anthropomorphism is a real trap in animal observation, for sure. But in this case, the science actually backs the sentiment. We aren't talking about hurt feelings, we are talking about the neurobiology of trauma.
Okay, tell me more about that.
When a primate experiences chronic social defeat, their cortisol levels, their stress hormones skyrocket and stay elevated.
And that's bad long-term.
It's terrible. Prolonged cortisol exposure physically damages the brain. It leads to behavioral depression, loss of appetite, and a suppressed immune system.
Wow.
So when the zoo says they are protecting his spirit, they are acknowledging the clinical reality of primate psychology. They are formally declaring that an animal's cognitive and emotional welfare is just as critical as its physical health.
So they're giving him agency. They are allowing his behavioral cues to dictate the pace of his own recovery, rather than forcing a timeline on him.
Precisely. It's incredibly progressive.
It is. But what really fascinated me was how they handled the monkeys they separated. Because human nature immediately wants a villain, right?
Oh, always. We want a bad guy.
Yeah, we want to point at the macaques that hurt Punch and label them the bad guys. But the zoo actively dismantled that narrative. They clarified that the separated macaques are, quote, by no means bad monkeys, unquote, and promised them careful care during their observation period.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where true advanced animal stewardship shines.
Because it removes the human morality from it.
Exactly. We instinctively want a protagonist and an antagonist. But these macaques are operating on millions of years of evolutionary programming. Establishing dominance and securing resources isn't malice, it's biology.
Right, they're just being monkeys.
Yeah. By publicly defending the separated monkeys, the zoo prevented the community from villainizing animals for displaying natural behaviors. They held space for the well-being of both the injured and the instigators.
It is incredibly mature crisis management.
Mm.
But the zoo didn't stop at managing the social dynamics. They pivoted to the environment itself, and the momentum of this update just exploded.
It really did.
They announced that they had already completed physical improvements to the habitat, specifically installing air conditioning and sunshades for the troop. Now, why are sunshades such a critical intervention for troop aggression?
Because environmental stress is one of the primary catalysts for social violence.
Just like people getting cranky in the heat.
Basically, yes. Heat stress increases a macaque's metabolic rate and causes immense physical discomfort, which spikes that cortisol we talked about earlier. When animals are hot and agitated, they are hyper-reactive.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, in a captive environment, shade is a finite resource. If there isn't enough shade for everyone, the most dominant animals will hoard it, forcing the subordinates into the blistering sun.
Oh, I see. So it becomes something to fight over.
Exactly. That resource guarding inevitably escalates into violence. By adding sunshades and air conditioning, the zoo eliminated a major environmental trigger for conflict.
Which brings us to the massive, jaw-dropping reveal. They announced that a backyard expansion is planned for the fiscal year.
I couldn't believe it when I read that.
Right. And they explicitly stated that all of this could open the door to a major Monkey Mountain renovation, or even an entirely new Monkey Mountain altogether. And they actually thanked the public for their constructive support.
Basically implying that the community's passion helped give them the mandate to build something better. Honestly, if this news got you even a little bit excited like it got us, do us a favor and hit the like button on whatever app you're using to listen to this.
Yes, please do.
It genuinely helps more people find Punch's story and helps us keep making these deep dives, because this reveal changes the entire trajectory of this community.
It really does. We went from staring at our phones at 3 a.m, absolutely terrified over a bite wound, to visualizing a multi-million yen infrastructural commitment to animal welfare.
Yeah, you could physically feel the energy shift online, from anxiety to pure, unadulterated hope.
It is the ultimate proactive response. Fixing the bite wound is reactive, right? But redesigning the habitat to provide more space, more escape valves, and less environmental stress.
That is visionary.
It is. And it perfectly set the stage for the final emotional beat of this 2-week saga, August 20th. Just a few days after this intense, heavy week of medical updates and architectural reveals, the Ichikawa City Zoo celebrated its 39th anniversary.
Which is just a completely different kind of milestone.
Completely different. To celebrate opening back in 1987, they offered free admission to local residents on August 23rd, along with complimentary entry for elementary and junior high school students.
It served as the perfect palate cleanser, honestly.
It really did.
After days of high-stakes welfare debates and raw emotional vulnerability, the community was rewarded with a day of pure, joyful celebration. It was a beautiful reminder that while the zoo is a place of scientific care, it is also a civic space.
Yeah.
It is a place for children, for families, and for neighbors to gather and experience wonder.
It felt like a massive exhale. Like the storm had entirely passed, Punch was safe, his psychological welfare was prioritized, the future of his habitat looked brighter than ever, and the community could just walk through the gates and enjoy the space together.
Absolutely. And, if you know someone who loves Punch and has no idea any of this happened over the last 2 weeks, send them a link to this deep dive. They really need to hear how this unfolded.
They really do. It's been wild.
And if you want to be right there with us for whatever happens next, tap. Join on our page to become part of the Punch and Friends team. You'll get deeper weekly content through the Punch Files, and you won't miss a beat of this journey.
Because what a journey it is. Here's where it gets really interesting. When you take a step back and look at this 2-week arc as a whole, from the 12th to the 20th, we basically moved through a microcosm of Punch's entire life story.
We truly did. Think about it. It began in a place of genuine fear and the raw vulnerability of watching an animal you love get hurt.
Right.
Then we transitioned into a phase of unprecedented transparency, where the institution met the public eye to eye with a firm commitment to both physical and psychological care.
Which was huge.
From there, we moved into profound hope with the announcement of a transformed future home. And finally, we landed on resilience and joyful celebration.
Vulnerability, care, resilience, and hope. It is Punch's story compressed into a single fortnight.
And it leaves us with something incredibly profound to consider moving forward. We've seen how a single monkey's emotional state and a community's hyper-connected empathy toward that monkey can influence a zoo to propose a massive habitat renovation.
Yeah, that's no small thing.
Not at all. It makes you wonder, how might this level of digital empathetic engagement start reshaping our expectations for wildlife conservation globally? If this community can advocate for the spirit of one captive macaque, could this same hyper-connected empathy eventually force a change in how we protect ecosystems and wild populations far outside of zoo walls?
Man, that is a fascinating thought. We aren't just looking at a distress flare in the dark anymore. We might actually be looking at the blueprints for a whole new way of advocating for the natural world.
I really think we might be.
Well, thank you all so sincerely for being part of this incredible story. With the prospect of the new Monkey Mountain on the horizon, there is so much more ahead. We'll see you on the next deep dive.